Time to check out a Stan Kraychik mystery, Book 5. Author, Grant Michaels. Publisher, St. Martin's Press, New York, 1996. Narrator, Eric Ost. Chapter 1. Everyone out there wants somebody dead. You can admit it. You've thought about it too. Yesterday, today, or tomorrow. However fleeting or enduring, however naked or veiled, the desire lurks in all of us. I gaze down from my guest house window. Lines of people pass by on Duval Street, in couples and singly, locals and tourists, stray cats and geckos, all out for a morning stroll along Key West Commercial Way. And I knew that every living creature on that sidewalk had at some time or other, in whatever language their killer instinct spoke, hurled the same fatal directive toward friend, neighbor, relative, spouse, mouse, boss, or bug. Time to check out, Dow. Despite the air conditioning in my dim little room, sweat oozed from my heat-swollen brain and trickled past my eyes down the side of my face, creating a salty riblet that got waylaid by the stubble of 4 days' growth of beard. October in Key West meant a last tidal wave of heat and humidity, stifling, oppressive weather that exhausted as much during sleep as in the so-called waking hours. And with my hypersensitive skin, avoiding the sun was an all-day preoccupation. I had driven south from Boston to escape a dreamy life that had gone haywire. My lover had been killed the previous summer. Like all accidental deaths, it was senseless. He had been crossing a busy street while distracted by the sheer romantic beauty of his hometown, Paris. A changing traffic signal had combined with a faulty brake line on a UPS delivery van. Pronounced pays in France. And my man, Rafik, was alive no more. Defunct. For whatever it was worth, there was a consolation prize. UPS had made a landmark decision and had settled generously with a domestic partner. That is me. They took full responsibility for the accident and awarded me a zillion francs, which converted at the time to roughly $3.5 million. Rafik's own extravagant life insurance from the ballet company left me another $1 million. So I was, at least from my working class perspective, rich. But was I smiling? I shaved my head and mustache to remind myself that life could change without warning at any time. Then I packed my summer togs, threw the bags into my Alpha Spider. That's another whole story. And set off as the Widow Kraychik for what I'd hoped would be sanctuary, a quiet guest house in a quiet off-season resort town, where I could regain some sense of equilibrium and find my new self. Nothing turned out as planned. I found myself all right, smack on the southernmost latitude of the whole continental United States, at the last stop on U.S. Highway 1, the end of the line, Key West, the asylum reef. But that morning I had more pressing business than to fret about happiness or its loss, or even about sunshine and humidity. I had to change guest houses. I was staying at a place called the Crow's Nest, a restored Victorian mansion on Duval Street, at the east end of town. The manager, an old biddy named Augusta Willitt, had taken an instant dislike to me. Maybe I reminded her of someone else, a nephew gone bad or something. Whatever the reason, I'd been asked with nary an apology to vacate the premises because of emergency repairs to the building. Mind you, the place was in flawless condition. I had just returned from breakfast when I found a note tacked onto the door of my room. It was penciled in a nasty scrawl. Checkout time is 11. It was only a little past the hour, and I didn't see the reason for such urgency. Key West was a resort town, after all. People were on vacation. Things were a little more relaxed, weren't they? Especially off-season. From what I'd seen at the Crow's Nest, the housekeeping staff didn't even show up until late in the afternoon. Why the fuss over a few minutes? I reminded myself that nothing mattered anymore, besides my next abode. The Jared Ballami House was even nicer, and they had approved of the stubble on my head and face. Very much for me. When I'd gone that morning to arrange for a room, my hair was already glistening with its natural coppery sheen, but I saw silver too, which hadn't been there before. Another rite of passage, I guess. So I replaced my bags back into the Alpha's tiny trunk, then headed to the Crow's Nest office and to turn in my room key, hoping perhaps to irk Augusta Willitt one last time and demand a refund for all the inconvenience. But the office was empty. I called out a few times without an answer. Then I heard the muffled chirping of an electronic alarm clock. Beep, beep, beep. Beep, beep, beep. I couldn't locate it at first, then realized it was coming from down behind the counter. I peeked over and heard myself mutter, "Ah, Jesus." Augusta Willitt was crumpled on the floor. Her tightly braided white hair was in disarray, and she looked catatonic. Beep, 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 went the clock. Beep, beep, beep. I ran behind the counter to help her. She wasn't breathing, and she had no pulse. A small electronic alarm clock had been jammed far into her mouth. It continued its discreet signal that the time for something had arrived. As I started dialing the police, a man came charging into the office from outside. He looked around 50 years old, with frizzy gray hair receding high into his scalp. He smoked a pungent imported cigarette. From the looks of his clothes and his scrawny, sunburnt legs, he was a tourist. And though his eyes were concealed by opaque sunglasses, he looked furious. "My room is in squalor," he railed. "It shall be cleaned immediately, or I will leave these premises." He spoke with a German accent. "Do you hear me?" he yelled. "Put down that phone and clean my room at once." "Achtung!" I murmured. Beep, 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 went Augusta Willitt's mouth. The police answered my phone call. I identified myself and told them what I discovered in the guest house office. 1 minute later, I hung up the phone. The German tourist leaned over the counter and saw Augusta's body. He removed his sunglasses and stared. "There is here a problem," he said. "That's right," I said. "A problem." Beep, beep, beep. "Should she some help be having?" said the German. "They're coming," I said. "But now?" He looked nervous. "For now," I said. "We wait." "Why are you not helping?" he said. "She's dead." The German's eyes bugged out. "So?" he said. "Now I am leaving." "The police are on the way," I said. "They'll want to talk to everyone here." "No," said the German with another glance toward the dead woman. "I have business now of extreme urgency." "If you go now, they'll only chase you down faster." And that settled his eagerness to flee. Meanwhile, Augusta continued. Beep, beep, beeping. The police arrived within minutes. The investigating officer was one Lieutenant Jesus Maria Sanfuentes. The name barely fit on his ID badge. He was a handsome, tawny-skinned Cubano with sleek black hair and a tough, chunky build. His hands were meticulously manicured, and he exuded the air of someone who kept his body squeaky clean. Yet he seemed overly serious, as though his name obligated him to fix everything wrong with the whole rotten world. The first thing he did was order the German to extinguish his cigarette. Meanwhile, his assisting sergeant spied Augusta's body and whistled softly. Then we all went through the usual routine. Yes, I'd found the body. Yes, I'd made the call. No, I hadn't touched anything. I suddenly felt self-conscious about how I looked. I hadn't shaved that morning because I didn't care much what people thought of me. But with the police taking their reports, appearances meant a lot. Everything, maybe. And there I was, looking like a displaced terrorist. Beep, 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 went Augusta. I told the lieutenant I was on vacation from Boston and was going to be staying at the Jared Ballami House, which seemed to impress him. When the cops questioned the German, his name, Adolf Doberman, caused mild surprise with the lieutenant. So, Mr. Doberman, he said, finally we meet. Do I know you? Said Doberman. Your name's been getting around the island. Adolf Doberman smiled, as if the cop had intended a compliment. From his shirt pocket, Sanfuentes produced a small metal tin. He slid open the top and sprinkled a few black granules into the palm of his hand, then popped them into his mouth. Within seconds, the air around him filled with a combined scent of licorice and violets. Then the cop said to Doberman, You're the one who's been buying up property all over the island. My money is good, replied the German. Your money's fine, said the cop. But we'd also like to keep Key West in American hands. How provincial, said Doberman. Are you a real estate agent? No, said Sanfuentes. Then I do not understand why this matter we are discussing, said Doberman. Now please, I have urgent business, just as you have business of your own, Herr Lieutenant. He made a sour face toward Augusta's body. What a squalid situation. He went to leave, but Sanfuentes stopped him. You'll go when I say so, said the cop. Tell me, where you're staying? Doberman replied haughtily. I am staying here, but my room is squalid. Sanfuentes said, Why aren't you in one of your own guest houses? I hear you bought up quite a few. Doberman said, They are all squalid now. He seemed to like the word. But when they are fit for habitation, they will provide an extravagant income. And what will your sarcasm earn for you, Herr Lieutenant? That's a good question, said Sanfuentes. I never thought of it. The German twisted his mouth slyly. Perhaps you should, he began, to light another cigarette, but Lieutenant Sanfuentes stopped him. Meanwhile, I glanced around the office for signs of foul play, and I did notice something missing. Until that morning, a large painting had hung on the wall behind the counter, done by a local artist named Jared Ballami. The work had struck me as fresh and original and amusing. I had even intended to find her studio and spend some of my blood money. But the painting was gone, and the wall was bare. I mentioned it to the lieutenant, who noted it in his report. Adolf Doberman remarked, It is rare for Americans to appreciate good art. You remember the painting, then? I said. Yes, replied Doberman. I recall it well, the cop said. When did you see it last? Early this morning, answered the German. I departed for my breakfast at 8 o'clock, and the painting was there on the wall. Are you sure about that? Said Lieutenant Sanfuentes, with new interest. Oh, yes, said Doberman. I paid it much attention because the painting would soon belong to me. Ah, said Sanfuentes. So you have it now? No, said Doberman. What happened to it? Said the cop. I should hardly know that, said Doberman, punctuating his words with a little snort. The cop asked, Did you also see Augusta Willitt this morning? Yes, said Doberman, and she was quite alive. Beep, 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 said the object of our discussion. The lieutenant made another note in his report, served himself another helping of breath mints, then said offhandedly, maybe that painting is connected to this. His eyes moved toward Augusta's body. My dear sir, said Doberman, that painting was art. Well, this woman, you will forgive me, please, was wasting oxygen on the planet. The cop answered quickly, almost defensively. Augusta Willitt was a true islander. She never left the reef. And how it showed, said Doberman with a derisive little bark. Yeah, like a jackal. Beep, 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 said the body, sounding more irate. For their part, the cops really didn't seem overly troubled that Augusta Willitt, their beloved old townie, was lying there dead. Beep, beep, beeping away behind the counter. The medical examiner arrived, a local doctor who went about his business leisurely. He determined the cause of death to be asphyxiation by a foreign object caught in the victim's throat. Then, finally, he extricated the alarm clock from the dead woman's mouth and silenced its infernal beeping. Adolf Doberman said, And now, please, I demand that you shall release me. I will confer with my attorney. Attorney, said Sanfuentes, did I accuse you of anything? I assure you, sir, replied the German, the business with my attorney is of another matter entirely. In that case, you can go, said the lieutenant. Just don't leave town without telling me. Then he released us both. Outside, Adolf Doberman lit one of his strong cigarettes. He smoked it like a nervous little bird, puffing furiously, but not inhaling. Then he pulled out a small cellular phone and made a call. I got into my Alpha and drove to the Jared Ballami House. The desk clerk there seemed delighted to see me, though he didn't recall meeting me earlier. Perhaps he was hallucinating. It wouldn't have surprised me. I'd been on Key West only 24 hours, and already I sensed that many islanders stumbled through the day, assisted by some kind of perception enhancer. Some stuck to basics like vodka, while the more intrepid souls pioneered the psychopharmaceutical frontiers, braving the latest FDA-approved miracles in capsule, tablet, or ampule form. My new room was spacious and comfortable and cool. If my cat, Sugar Baby, had been traveling with me, she would have shown her approval by springing onto the bed and affixing herself spread eagle to the Chanel bedspread, all 4 sets of claws, seeking hospitality among the puffy cotton tufts. My lover, Rafik, would have sought a different kind of hospitality between the sheets, but Sugar Baby was back in New Jersey, with my 2 nieces enjoying exalted attentions. I could never quite render, and Rafik was dead, wherever that was. Buck up, I told myself. You got your money. You got your health. Keep going forward. So I unpacked my bags, and then lay down for a bit and tried to read a book I brought with me. It was a runaway bestseller called Only the Dead Know, by a writer named Edsel Sham. I had missed its meteoric rise while I was shuttling back and forth to Paris, settling Rafik's estate and burying his remains. I'd hoped to read the book in Key West on my so-called vacation, but it was no use. That morning, the recent trauma with the dead woman had left me too restless to read. So I went out, considering what I had witnessed an hour earlier. I was ready for some chemical assistance of my own. Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.